This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. The death toll in Texas is rising as the search for survivors continues.
So far, we've evacuated over 850 uninjured people, 8 injured people, and have recovered 27 deceased fatalities at this time. Of these 27, 18 are adults, 9 are children.
Kerr County Sheriff Larry Letha during a news conference last hour. He says several of the people killed in the flash flooding have not yet been identified. Yesterday's surprise storm unleashed about 300 millimeters of rain, causing the Guadalupe River to rise 8 meters in just 45 minutes. Torrents of water washed away homes and vehicles. This man says he couldn't find his parents.
We're desperately seeking them. I called him and just said, hey, you've got to get up. It's flooding down there. And 6 minutes later, they were gone. That was it. My brother went up to check on my parents, and all the trailers are gone. They were all just floating down the river.
Dozens of people are missing, including 25 girls who were attending a summer camp. Governor Greg Abbott has declared a state of emergency in the affected counties.
We will stop at nothing to ensure that every asset and person and plane and whatever is needed is going to be involved in the process of rescuing every last person and ensure everybody involved in this is going to be fully accounted for.
The White House is promising additional help, with President Donald Trump calling the tragedy shocking and terrible. Meanwhile, President Trump is considering sending more help to Ukraine. Trump says the war-torn country will need Patriot missiles to fight off Russia, and he's thinking about ways to put more pressure on Vladimir Putin. Dominic Velitis has the latest.
Russia's escalating air attacks on Ukraine were one of the main topics of conversation during US President Donald Trump's phone call yesterday with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky.
Hello, everybody. So we had a good day?
It was a good call, Trump told reporters on board Air Force One, and when asked whether the United States would agree to Ukraine's requests to supply more Patriot missiles to defend its cities against Russian airstrikes, the US president had this to say.
They're going to need them for defense. They're going to need something because they're being hit pretty hard.
Trump also spoke with Russia's Vladimir Putin on Thursday, the day before his call with Zelensky. And when asked about the prospects of a ceasefire between the two warring countries, Trump didn't hold back in criticizing the Russian leader.
I was very unhappy with my call with President Putin, and it just seems like he wants to go all the way and just keep killing people. No good. It's not good. I wasn't happy with it.
Trump's latest words represent a significant change in tone toward Putin, and they may soon be backed up with action, with Trump telling reporters he discussed new US sanctions with Putin during their call, that the Russian leader was worried about them and understands they may just be around the corner. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Riga, Latvia.
Hamas says it has given a positive response to the latest ceasefire proposal for Gaza. The plan was put forward by the United States. Donald Trump says a deal could be reached as early as next week.
I'm very optimistic, but, look, it changes from day to day. It's been changing for years. It changed as I came in. I inherited a very bad situation in many ways. And we've gotten a lot of hostages out, as you know, from Gaza, a lot. But unfortunately, we inherited that situation.
The U.S. president told reporters on Air Force One that he had not yet been briefed on the current negotiations, but he says Hamas has responded in a positive spirit. The 60-day ceasefire proposal would include the release of some Israeli hostages. So far, there's been no comment from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is set to meet with Donald Trump in Washington on Monday. As tariff threats make business with the U.S. less and less reliable, Canada's new international trade minister is openly shopping around. Janice McGregor sat down with him for his first broadcast interview, airing today on CBC Radio's The House.
I think Canada has a lot to offer, and we should be, screaming that at the top of our lungs.
The race is on for Maninder Sidhu to land new deals. The new trade minister's already notched a couple with Ecuador and the United Arab Emirates. But are those small markets anywhere close to replacing America's massive demand.
What I've talked to businesses about across the country is it's not going to happen overnight.
And getting cozy with other big players, well, that's complicated. Take the UK. Canada already does a lot of business there, but last year British negotiators walked away from talks to free up even more trade. Both sides wanted to protect their farmers. Sidhu says that's not going to change.
We've been very, very clear that we'll never dismantle supply management.
And then there's India, where tensions remain over political meddling and security threats. At last month's G7 summit, Canada restored its diplomatic relationship. Trade commissioners will now return to their posts. But will negotiators return for tariff talks?
Look, I think there's a lot of things to be worked out.
Sidhu also has more to work out with his Chinese counterpart to lift Beijing's tariffs on Canadian farm exports like canola oil. Meanwhile, things with Washington remain fragile. Inu Monik from the Council on Foreign Relations says it's a tricky balancing act.
You got to find a way not to agitate Trump further, that he ratchets up the pressure in addition to what's already there.
The U.S. president wants his deals with other countries by next Wednesday. Canada's deadline is 2 weeks later. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
And you can hear more coming up on the House right after World Report. Hundreds of people in northern Manitoba are being forced from their homes yet again due to wildfires. The last flight taking the remaining residents out of Lynn Lake is expected to leave today. A mandatory evacuation of the community began yesterday, only 2 weeks after residents returned from an earlier evacuation. Buses and planes are taking them to Brandon, about 800 kilometers south. It is the first weekend of the Calgary Stampede, also known as the greatest outdoor show on earth. But as CBC's Paula Duhachik explains, the 10-day rodeo is not just about fun, it's also about the economy.
Another Stampede is off to the races.
It's going to be an incredible experience for me, being a Maritimer.
10 out of 10.
I am so excited to be here.
Down at the grounds, there's rides, extreme snacks, chuck wagon races, and barrel racing. But Stampede takes over the entire city with 10 days worth of concerts, parties, and pancake breakfasts, which means lots of opportunities to spend money.
It really sets the stage for how people are feeling.
Mark Parsons is chief economist at ATB Financial and sees Stampede as a bellwether for the Alberta economy.
There is talk nowadays about Canada becoming an energy superpower, talking about pipelines again. So to me, this all supports more optimism.
It's really exciting.
Julie Forget is a Stampede spokesperson.
We've got a lot of premium suites that we sell in the GMC Stadium for the rodeo and the chucks, and those are all sold out.
Here's the sweet tea with boba.
Down at the Midway, visitors say they are ready to open their wallets.
We've got freshly squeezed lemonade. Can do $35, I think, for 3 of them.
How much were the fries?
$16.
And do you have a budget for Stampede?
Heck no. Spend all of it.
The Stampede says its economic impact for the province is around $282 million. But at the end of the day, you can't put a price on a good time.
Yahoo!
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 Paula Duhachik, CBC News, Calgary.
Humpback and minke whales are a common sight off Newfoundland's Avalon Peninsula, but this year they're attracting unusually large crowds. The town of St. Vincent, St. Stephen's, Peters River has tourists flooding in every day. The reason? Better cell phone service that extends out to the beach, making it easier than ever for people to pull out their phones and live stream the whales they're spotting. The crowd's also giving local business a boost. The mayor says food trucks, grocery stores, and restaurants are packed. And finally, Oasis are back. It has been 16 years since Noel and Liam Gallagher took to the stage together, and the Britpop supergroup's reunion tour has come with massive anticipation and expectations. People traveled from around the world to see the opening show in Cardiff. The famously fractious fraternal hitmakers kept it together on stage, delivering some of their greatest hits to the delight of old fans and new. Last night's opening show kicks off a series of stops around the world this year. Canada will see Oasis play 2 shows in Toronto in late August. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.